This is the Governor's Emergency Education Response, GEER, Emergency Assistant to Non-Public Schools, EANS, Application Overview Office Hour. And before we get going, on the next slide, there we go. And Jill, would you mind doing the admitting? Thanks.
I've got it too, Meg.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yep. And thanks, Jill. We'll get there in just a second, explaining everything. So, okay, but before we got too far along the meeting, I wanted to take care of some housekeeping items. So again, welcome. For those of you who are not super familiar with Teams, we wanted to show you around just a few helpful aspects, what we hope will be helpful. For one, if you click on the 3 dots or ellipses that Laura is demonstrating for you and click on that and pull down that menu, you can find turning on live captions. So if you would like to have what we're saying captioned for you, that's the way to turn that on. We are recording this, and when we post it to our website, it will be closed captioned, but this is just if you would like live captions during this presentation. If you have questions or if something we say triggers a question, please enter it in the meeting chat, and the way to find the chat is by clicking on the bubble, that icon that looks like a speech bubble at the top of your screen. And finally, there's a hand raise feature that we wanted to point out for when we have the question and answer time and we're responding to questions at the second part of our time together. We'll encourage you to use that hand raise feature, as Laura just demonstrated for us. Okay, thank you, Laura. So before Laura shows us the application and I introduce the rest of the team, it's just some important information for us as we move forward. Reminder that applications are due on April 30th of this year, and as you may have noticed, Jill posted the link to the GEER EANS dedicated website that includes guidance memos as well as any future information will be posted. So that's a helpful space on the agency's website to bookmark. There is a dedicated program team at the agency and also here on this call, not yet, to support the GEER EANS. The members of the program team are Deb Ormsby, Pat Pallas-Gray, Lori Dolezal, Donna Stafford, Laura Greenwood, who is the person who will be walking us through the application in just a minute, and Meg Porcella, that's me, hi, I'm Meg, and Jill Briggs Campbell. And if you're not already aware of the dedicated email for the GEER EANS program, it's on the slide in front of us right now, that aoe.geereans@vermont.gov. And a member of this program team is monitoring that email every day. And that's the best place, the fastest way to contact us with the questions that you may have. Our purpose today is to walk you through the application, highlighting some really important parts or parts that we think are important. To help you plan for your needs now, we encourage you to communicate with us and ask questions today and through the email. And we want to point out that we have an office hour coming up on April 12th that will be dedicated to helping you with the strategic use of GEER EANS, especially the strategic decision making around reimbursement and provision of goods and services within your application. And finally, we wanted to just show a slide that spells out the acronyms that are pervasive around these funds, and that just explain a little bit of the high level details of the programs that relate to independent schools. More detailed information about all of these is available on our website, but the important thing here is that when we say ESSER, that stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the CRF, the Payment Protection Program, PPP, we talk about PPP loans, and then where we are now, GEER, the Governor's Emergency Education Relief, and EANS, Emergency Assistant for Non-Public Schools. And from here on in, GEER EANS is how we're referring to that particular program, this program, the program we're here to talk about today. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura. Please, we encourage you to put questions in the chat. The chat is being monitored. There will be time in just a few minutes when Laura's through to ask your questions as well. And again, welcome. We're really, really glad that you're here, and we look forward to working through this program with you. Thanks.
All right. Hi, everyone. I am opening up the application, and it looks like, Meg, is our Zoom okay? Is that a good size?
Maybe just a skosh bigger.
Okay. Might be too much. I think I'm gonna.
My old eyes can read it, so.
Okay, cool.
Looks good. Thank you. That's not funny, Jill. You're younger than I am.
I'm going to bring us back to page 1. So, hi again, everyone. My name is Laura Greenwood, and we are going to walk through the application step by step here. The first page of the application provides an introduction and a few directions to help you complete the application. To summarize the directions a bit, before beginning the application, please review the GEER EANS guidance. This will help you by providing the context of this program and introduce you to some terms and phrases you'll need to be familiar with. Also, make sure you have your school year 2019-2020 student enrollment data available. We will discuss this more a bit in the next few pages. And lastly, if an answer is required throughout the application, you will not be able to continue without providing a response. Scroll down a bit.
Laura, can you hang on just 1 second?
Yep.
Can everybody see the application on their screen? Catherine's, okay.
I suggested that Catherine try hanging up and rejoining, and she'll hopefully be able to see it.
Thank you. Thanks, Laura. I'm sorry.
No worries. You all do have the option to save and return to the application at a later time. When you click the save button on the bottom right of any page, which is down here, you will be prompted to provide your email, and this is what that message will look like. It will pop up every time you click save throughout this application. We encourage you to save often, but especially after the expense request sections, as those take a bit more time and work. So you want to make sure those are saved. This application includes 12 sections, and we will explain what some of these terms and phrases means once we get to that portion of the application. And very importantly, the due date for this application is April 30th at 4 p.m. Late submissions will not be accepted. You will know your application has been successfully submitted because you will receive a confirmation email with a PDF copy of your application. This is not a notice of approval, but a notice that the application was received by the Agency of Education. So there's nothing to submit here, and you will just click next. All right. The overview of program page provides a really high-level look at the GEER EANS program. We will go through all of this information in more detail throughout the application. You will see information here about allowable costs and per pupil amounts. You do not need to keep track of that information right now, as expense requests are automatically calculated. You don't need to do the math. You will want to review this page in full when you are working through the application. So we're going to skip through it for now. Next, we have the eligible applicants page. Before you continue through the application, you will need to review these criteria and ensure you qualify before continuing the application. I'm going to pause here for just a few seconds for you to review this criteria, but note we will also see it on the next page as well. As applicants, as you all just read on the previous page, schools applying for GEER EANS support and assistance must meet all 4 of the following requirements. Applicants will not be able to proceed through the application if all 4 requirements are not met. If you have any questions about your school's eligibility, please do not hesitate to contact the GEER EANS program team at the email listed at the top of this page right here. And we'll repeat that throughout this as well, as that will be a really good place to get a quick response and make sure everyone's communicating together. As you see, if I click no on any of these, I will get a red error message and I will not be able to click next. So all of them would turn red and I wouldn't be able to proceed. So if you are eligible, you will click yes for all of these, and then you will be able to go to the next page. The required school data section requires standard contact information. It's important to note the only person that can sign and submit this application is the independent school head. You will notice at the bottom here that business office information is not required with that little red star, as you can move forward if that information is not applicable. This might be a good time to also click that save button, and I'll show you just to get a preview again of the pop-up message you'll receive. You'll plug in your email and then you'll be emailed a link that you can return to this exact spot, so you don't have to fill it out again. Now we are moving to page 6. The other COVID-19 emergency funding page will ask for information about what COVID-related funding you may or may not have already received. We ask for information about the Paycheck Protection Program, coronavirus relief funds, and elementary and secondary school emergency relief. Those are the same names and acronyms that Meg showed us on the chart at the beginning of this session. Replying yes to any of these does not disqualify you for GEER EANS. That's important. For the PPP program, you will be asked to provide a total amount, if applicable, and response to the assurance statement. So this first section, Paycheck Protection Program, if I click no, I simply get to move on. If I click yes, I'll be prompted to put in an amount. I put in $1,000 for this example, and then I clicked yes to this assurance. And you'll want to read these all carefully when you go through these yourself. If I clicked yes or the coronavirus relief funds, I'll show you no first. There's nothing there to fill out. If I click yes, I will have the option to add which group of funds I received, and those are listed right here for you. And I'm going to move on. We are on page 7 now. The student enrollment data page is really important, as this information will calculate what your school's maximum amount will be that you can request. You likely already have this information as it was asked for in the intent to apply survey for GEER EANS that you submitted a few weeks ago. You can and should use that exact same information unless there was an error or you for some reason have updated information. Just make sure to put in the correct information there. Similar from the intent to apply survey, you will need to enter total student enrollment for 2019 and 2020 school year and the number of students from low income households. So I'm going to enter 100 for total student enrollment for the 2019-20 school year, and I'm going to enter 50 for the number of students from low-income families enrolled during the 2019-2020 school year. Let's scroll down a bit. You will then be asked to select the data sources used to determine your low-income student data. You may select more than one or choose the other option. So I could click one of these or more than one of these, or if I click other, you will be prompted to list what that data source is. You will also notice after that information was provided up here, what the student enrollment data was, that will automatically calculate down here in the bottom right of page 7. This is one of the 2 spots where you can see how much GEER EANS support is available to your school for you to apply for. So in this case, $70,130.50. 2 words, and you've probably already heard them a few times, 2 words and phrases that we will be using a lot throughout this application are reimbursement and provision of services and goods. These are the 2 methods to receive GEER EANS support. And as you can see here, there are 12 allowable cost categories, but only 9 of these categories are available through reimbursement. The other 3 are available through the provision of services and goods through the Agency of Education. Meg mentioned that at our April 12th office hour, which is coming up soon, we will go into further detail of what this means and the difference between reimbursement and provision of services and goods. This is a page that's just for reading, and there's nothing to fill out, but when you're going through the application and even before that April 12th meeting, this is really good information to review just to get familiar with what is allowable and what is not.
This is Jill.
Yep.
I just want a quick clarifying statement. The top 9 are available for reimbursement and provision of goods and services, so they could be done both ways. The bottom 3 are only available for provisions of goods and services as laid out by the federal statutory language. So just a quick clarifying point. Proceed.
Again, this is just a reading page. There's nothing you need to complete. And all right. The directions for completing expense request page provides a brief explanation of the upcoming expense request sections. So these include previous expenses, requests for reimbursement, future expenses, requests for reimbursement, and the provision of services and goods, requests through the Agency of Education. And you can see those listed here. At the bottom of this page, which is page 9, you will see this is the next spot that you can see your maximum amount that your school may request. And this is the same number that we saw back on page 7 from entering the student enrollment data. An important reminder is that this maximum amount is for all 3 of these categories combined. This is not per category. So this is the first of 3 expense request sections. This section is only for previous expenses that are being requested through reimbursement. This section is for expenses that you have incurred from March 13th, 2020 to March 23rd, 2021. First, you will use the drop-down to select the category of the expense. I'm going to select educational technology. And you'll see these are the exact phrases that you saw on the allowable expense page. I am then going to write a description in this middle column. The description must include what's being requested and why it is necessary for your COVID-19 response. I'm going to copy and paste in my description. And I wrote, which is the same that's in the example, laptop computers to support remote learning during COVID-19. And the amount I'm going to request is $1,000. And when I do that, you will see your total request for GEER EANS is starting to accumulate down here. All right, I think I'm going to keep moving. So this is the exact same process as the previous section. So this is for future expenses from March 23rd, 2021 to September 30th, 2023. For this example, I am going to choose physical barriers to facilitate social distancing. And my description, you can see the example right up here as well. I'm going to copy and paste that. To return to fully in-person instruction, we need to install plexiglass barriers in classrooms and in the dining hall. I'm going to request $12,000 for that. And again, you'll be able to see that total from the previous request for reimbursement page, and now the future request for reimbursement page is totaling in this corner. And one more thing I want to share. In all of these, you have the big add item button. So it's not just one line per section. You can add 3, 4, and you'll receive the same drop down. So I could choose another one, write a description, 3,000. You have to write a description. And you will see the total increased. Oh, a description's required. I'm going to use the same one. Laptop computers for now. Okay, so you will be prompted, you will not be able to move forward if you don't fill that out. All right, again, this is the exact same process as the previous sections, though this is for provision of services and goods through the Agency of Education. Please note that contracts must be fully executed through the state of Vermont by August 23rd, 2021, but the services can be available through September 30th of 2023. And another plug and reminder, at our April 12th office hours, we'll review the difference between reimbursement and provision of services and goods. For this one, I am going to choose initiating and maintaining education support services in my description. is going to be professional development about data literacy to effectively measure, analyze, and address disruption of student learning during remote instruction. And I'm going to show you what's going to happen if I request more than my maximum amount from page 7 and 9 of this application. So my total request turned out to be $116,000, and that exceeded the amount that was calculated based on the student enrollment data. So I could either click back and update the reimbursement sections of this application, or I can update this information, and then I should be okay because that's in the allowable amount. Again, for provision of services and goods, I could add a few more rows if I needed to, and if I accidentally added a row, I would just remove it. All right, and again, this might be a really good time on all of these pages to click the save button, because this section might take a bit more time than the rest of the application, and so then you won't have to repeat that. And if you made it through there, this will be the final page. The assurances and signature is the last page of the application. Scroll up. It is very important to review all of the assurances before signing and submitting this. As a reminder, only the independent school head can be the signatory of this application. And at that April 12th office hour, we will also discuss the transfer of title agreements and how that process will work. I'm going to put in my name. I'm going to sign. Yep. Signature, and I'm going to submit. You will receive this message after you submit your application. And again, you'll receive a confirmation email that will have a PDF copy of exactly what you wrote in this application. If you did, after you press submit application and you realize I accidentally submitted some inaccurate information or forgot to add something in the request section, you'd want to email the program team at that same email address, and we would provide you with a link so you could update or adjust the mistake that was made or add what was missing. And I think that's it. I'm going to stop sharing. All right. And I think the next step was to go through any questions in the chat that we have.
Thank you, Laura. So there's only a couple so far. The first is from Eric. And Eric, I think probably your question got answered in the course of the demonstration that Laura gave, which was once you put in your student enrollment numbers, is the allocation generated? Is it like a multi-year allocation for the life of the period of performance for this particular fund? And the answer is no, it's a one-time allocation. So you will get a number that's generated there. The second question came from Kate, and Linda, I see your hands up. We'll definitely get to you in just a moment. Kate asked, for future expenses, do we need to have a quote from a vendor on price? And if she's available, I'm going to ask Cassandra Ryan, who is our one of our team members on the finance side, to give a little bit of an explanation about where we're at in this process. And again, signaling that much of this will be addressed on April 12th. So we would sort of encourage you to come back for that one. So Cassandra, are you available? I know you were having some internet issues earlier. And you may be on mute. Okay, I can see she's here, but she's not able to respond. So, Kate, I'm going to try and get her, and we'll see if we can bring her in at some point to answer that question for you. So hang tight. We'll try and get to that. Linda, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? If you want to unmute.
I was just wondering, is there any advantage to applying early? I put it in the chat too.
Yeah, so the easy answer to that one is no, because it's an allocation formula. So it's not a competitive grant. It's based on your student enrollment numbers. And we would actually encourage folks to do the planning right now, identify what your needs are, get your student data together. But we would encourage you to hold until after April 12th. There is a process that we're going through right now to really establish how reimbursement and sort of the provision of goods and services is going to work so that we can meet the federal requirements of this program, which are a little bit challenging. And we want to make sure that we're able to give you all the best strategic advice. So we would say sort of get all your ducks in a row, attend the webinar on the 12th, and then go ahead and complete the application before the 30th. So good question, Linda. All right, so we have another question from Liz. Am I understanding correctly that one can calculate Title I eligibility low income using proportionality as a measure? And if so, can you explain that process a bit more? So the answer is yes, there is a variety of ways that you can determine your low income student data, and proportionality is one of those. If you were interested in doing that, Liz, I would ask that you contact our team, and we also want to work with Jessie Roy, who is over in our Title I team, and work through the process of proportionality. But at the risk of not being exactly accurate in the technicalities, so please don't hold me to it, the way that this would work is that you would use the Title I, what do I want to say? The Title I allocations or numbers for the LEA, and then you would have a proportional share of that. Is a very sort of rough way of saying that. If you have other numbers that are available, FRL data, financial assistance data, those are also available. So if there's any question about a need to determine your low income student data, which we recognize is not something that we normally ask you to gather, so we will be there to support you as a team. So we'd ask that you reach out and we can work on determining that. We do recognize that some schools may actually have several LEAs that are sort of their district that they would be involved in. So Liz, that's not a perfect answer, but the short answer to that is yes, and we will work with you to establish what that number would be. We have another question from Kate. Teaching supplies such as duplicate books, art supplies, seat organizers, online learning, access for student outdoor classroom needs. So Kate, are you asking, are those allowable uses? The answer is yes. And I don't know if there's a second part to that question, if you want to unmute and you can ask it. But yes, those would definitely fall within the scope of allowable costs.
I think she was asking where they, I'm sorry, yeah, where they fit, where those things fit.
Kate, is that what you were asking? And you may be on mute.
She's chatting, yes. She's
okay, great. Laura, would you, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen, could you pull up the list of allowable cost categories?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
1 second. Since I submitted, I have to see if I can click through.
While you're doing that, Laura, Dennis has a question about, for past expenses, do you add each expense or can you accumulate items such as PPE expenses? So I think, Dennis, what you're asking is for any particular cost category, if you say had multiple orders of, say, PPE, sanitizer, and disinfectant, could you put that all in one particular budget line? Is that what you're asking, Dennis?
Yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. So you would put that in that sort of narrative description, PPE, sanitizer, in order to, I mean, that one's a fairly obvious COVID need, but in order to meet health requirements for in-person learning, and you would put it all into one accumulated thing. However, Dennis, when you submitted for reimbursement, you would submit, you know, separate invoices or whatever receipts that may be.
Okay.
Thanks, Laura. So, Kate, to answer your question, here's the cost categories. So I think that there's probably a few different ways that you could address this. Other materials, supplies, or equipment for reopening and operation of schools to maintain health and safety. You could put sort of extra student materials in there, the idea being that you wouldn't want them to be sharing, so they'd each have their own individual bucket or their own individual notepads or markers. So that, to me, is the one that would make the most sense and is a nice sort of catch-all category for those kinds of in-person costs that come up.
Jill, and I would just add to that one, and you might have said it already, just to make sure in that description, when you're writing that out, you connect it to how it's related to your COVID response. Because if we can't see the connection, it'll be difficult to approve an expense if it's not, we don't see the connection.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one thing that's important to highlight here, and as part of this application process, the GEERS, and partly because this is it's a new program, right? Sort of the AOE has never done anything like this. You all as independent schools have never done anything like this. So as part of the application process, you will have a consultation with our team members. So if there is anything in the application that needs to be edited or adjusted, you know, or a conversation needs to be had around that, that's part of that process. So that is something that will be happening. I see a couple of hands are up, so I want to make room for that. Linda, I see your hand is up. Is that from your earlier question?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And let's see, I can't see who else has their hand up. I can't see who that is. But if you do have your hand up and you'd like to ask a question, go ahead and unmute.
I did have my hand up. Can I ask it now?
Yes, go right ahead, Eric.
This is Eric Romberg at the Compass School. During the initial presentation, there was something that was said that just went by a little too fast for me. And it was something about things have to be ordered or requisitioned by a certain date, even though the grant goes all the way till September of 2023. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and Eric, you're pointing to something that is something we are actually trying to work really closely with the U.S. Department of Education to get a better understanding of ourselves. Written into the federal statute is a deadline to obligate. And so that's sort of a very technical federal guidance kind of term. And so this is, if I'm going to sort of stick a pin in it a little bit, because this is actually part of the process that we're trying to work out right now that we'll be able to share more on April 12th. Okay. So if it's okay, we're going to go ahead and punt that question until we get greater clarity from the Department of Education.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your patience on that. All right, Megan has a question about, is enrollment limited to domestic students or does it include our residential boarders as well? Megan, that's an excellent question, and I think that's one that we would want the team to put their heads together on. That's, I think, a unique question for us. So I'm going to go ahead and log it, and we will be reaching back out with an answer for you, because I wouldn't want to answer that one off the cuff. Robin asks, if one of the expenses is for Chromebooks, who ends up owning these? Do we give up ownership at some point? So Laura, would you mind going to the assurance on the last page about transfer of title? Robin, really good question. And again, this is something we'll be explaining in more detail on the April 12th webinar. But what we do need to signal is that as part of the federal requirements, there is a requirement that if you are looking for reimbursement by federal regulation, the Agency of Education is not allowed to sort of give you funds, right? And so what the process is that essentially the agency will be purchasing the computers from you. So as part of the reimbursement process, there will be a transfer of title document. So the short answer to that is that the Agency of Education ends up owning your laptops. And so we are again sort of working on what is the language and the process that we need to engage in to meet the federal requirements that we can then share with you to help you with making these kind of strategic decisions about how to use these funds. But the short answer is yes, and that is one of the assurances that you sign when you sign the grant application. I see, yes, Robin, do you have a follow-up on that? I see your hand.
I do. I'm just trying to understand how that works. So for instance, I would, this would be an item, just a very specific item we'd be looking for reimbursement for. We did get our teachers new laptops to facilitate distance learning. So I would put in for reimbursement. The agency would then own them. How long do they stay in our hands?
Yeah, so these are all really good questions that we are, again, engaged in a process with the Department of Education to determine what sort of our obligations are to meet the federal requirements. And I know that's not the best answer for you, and we wish that we had a more clear one, and we will in a couple of weeks. So we are trying to determine exactly, sort of when does that period end, what happens at the end of that period. And the short answer is we don't know the answer to that question at this point, but we will. We're working very quickly to try and determine that. But it's a good one and an important question. All right, so we will collect that one and be coming back to it. Liz asks, how should we count Universal Pre-K Act 166 eligible students at our school? So Liz, can I clarify? So they're not kindergarten students, they're pre-kindergarten?
Yeah, they're pre-K students who are part of, the Universal Pre-K program.
Okay, good question. And I think that we did just get very recently, like hot off the presses, and updated guidance from the Department of Education around pre-K counts. And I'm wondering if Cassandra is available now. I'm going to try and reach it back out to her because I know that she was looking at that the other day. I think we're missing her because of internet issues. Liz, I want to consult with Cassandra on that and look at the FAQs a little bit more closely before we get back to you on that, if that's okay.
Of course, no problem.
The original information said you don't count them, but I think that the new information says that you do, but I want to be sure before I answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jill,
Yes.
I'm trying to capture all these in the wiki too, so that we can come back to them for the next. So if anyone wants to help with that, that'd be great. Just to make
I know. I was trying to too before I started talking, Lori.
I didn't want it to be duplicated by anybody else. So yeah, if we can use that space.
Yeah, excellent. Grab and throw them in there. So Linda has a question. Will you be looking for supporting documents for reimbursement? The answer is yes. We don't know what exactly that's going to be yet at this point. But yes, keep good records, please, of all purchases. That's really important. So as best as your accounting system can handle. All right. So Drew has a question. What types of services fall under initiating and maintaining education and support services or assistance for remote or hybrid learning to address learning loss? So Drew, I think one of the examples that we gave in the application was something like professional development around data literacy so that you could effectively measure learning loss and then make data-driven decisions from that. There's probably a host of things that could fall under that. We've had questions about like summer learning loss programs have come in. And so that might be a way that you're trying to measure or address learning loss. I think that for a lot of us, in our schools, remote is less of an issue now because we've done such an amazing job here about getting back to in-person learning or hybrid learning. So there may be a whole host of kind of, social, emotional, and mental health supports that you may be seeking. And all of those fall under the category of agency provision of services. So if you put those in your application, then we would be working with you to provide those services or goods, right? It could be something like a software license for a mental health curriculum, something like that. All of those could fall under that bucket. So it's a big category, but it is that provision of goods and services category.
I think too, to help out with program review or application review, what Laura has been saying is really important to make sure you explain how this thing you're doing is helping or how it has helped you deal with COVID.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So that description in the budget line item is really helpful and important. And then the consultation process will, tease out those details, particularly around provision of goods and services, because you'll be partnering with the agency to determine what you need and then working to secure that. And then Catherine asked, so basically we're applying to Vermont State for reimbursement, not funds technically, Catherine. And then Vermont sends it to the federal government. Is that how this works? No, so the Agency of Education holds the funds for this. And so if you have a cost you've already incurred, say backwards looking, we have $5,000 in PPE that we've purchased since March 13th of last year. You would submit, we'll have a process for submitting for reimbursement, and then the Agency of Education would reimburse you for those goods, essentially. The provision of services is a different process, and it's you are engaging with the Agency of Education to provide those goods and services to you. So again, on the April 12th webinar, we'll be talking about how you sort of weigh those two different options, sort of reimbursement versus procurement, and what maybe strategically is going to make the most sense for you. So Catherine, I hope that helps to explain it a little bit better, but the Agency of Education holds the funds and then we will reimburse you.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you so much.
All right. And Robin, I see your hand is up. I don't know if that's from before, if you have a new question.
That's from before.
Okay. Really good questions. And we understand, as I said, it's a new animal for you all. It's a new animal for Agency of Education. The federal government's asked us to create a new thing. So we really appreciate your patience as we're trying to ensure that we're meeting those federal requirements and also provide you all with support and answers to all of your questions as well. Other questions coming in that you may have? All right, so Lori, we will do a good job of going through the chat, collecting everything. There's definitely some themes. Okay, so Drew's asking if we wanted to hire a literacy teacher for summer. So Drew, anything, generally speaking, anything to do with hiring of personnel is going to fall under that category of provisions of goods and services from Agency of Education. So that is something that you would put under that category in your budget line. Then you would partner with your kind of GEER EANS support team members, and we would go through the process of procuring those goods or services for you. And I will also signal that there's a lot of other funding program supports available. So, in that consultation process, if you're looking at things like, broadband or internet, those kinds of things, there's all kinds of other federal programs that have come through. And so, that's sort of part of the strategic decision making, is how can you, kind of try to weave those things together to maximize kind of your funding and support as best you can. So that will be part of the consultation process as well. If we can say like, oh, hey, do you know about this program? We'll try and let you in on anything that we've learned along the way as well. Other questions? You're thinking so many questions. All right, well, I think if there's no others, last call, I think we can probably end a little bit early. As we said at the beginning, we really recommend that at this point you sort of, now you know what to expect in the application. It's a pretty straightforward document, which we tried to keep it really simple. So sort of gather the information, start to determine what your needs are, and then we would sort of recommend that you just hold for a couple of weeks. I know you don't want to, but hold for a couple of weeks until that the April 12th webinar, and we'll be able to really draw out what these procurement and title transfer and provision of goods and services are going to mean for you. And the last question, will this recorded webinar be available? The answer is yes. We will get it posted as soon as possible. We need to do some closed captioning on it. And as soon as we do, we will email it out and post it on our website. And the same thing for the April 12th. We'll make sure that that is available to folks as well. Please continue to send in those questions. We welcome them. It helps us to know how we need to best support you. So we are really here to get everybody through this process, and we'll all learn together. All right, so I think that's it, and unless anybody else has other questions. Okay, wonderful. Have an excellent afternoon. Thank you all, and we will be in touch.